Priyai Kesavasya Vishnu Bhakti Pradedevi Satchavachai Namo Namaha. Jai Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai. All right. Okay, welcome. Do we need a microphone or no?
Yes, good. I'll sorry.
Yes.
1 second.
Jaya Radha Madhova Punjabi Khalre Jaya Radha Madhova Punjabi Khalre
Jaya Radha Punjabi Hari
Janamalabha Girimadharate
Jaya Gopi Janamalabha
Janamalabha Girimadharate
Jaya Gopi Janamalabha Girimadharani
Suranam Dhanaraja Yamuna Tera Balacharute
Yamuna Tira Banachari
Yamuna Tera Balacharute
Yamuna Tira
Jaya Radha Bhuta Punjabi Prabhupada. Paramahansa Paravidikacharya also Teta Satashi Shimad, His Divine Grace. Abhaya Chalanada Bhaktivedanta Goswami Mahārishila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Vedas Thakur Ki Jai. Friends, say Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shadway Gadadha Sri Vasudeva Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Sri Sri Radhakrishna Gopi Gopinath Shaima Kunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavanam Ki Jai. Mathuram Ki Jai. Swami Ki Jai. Madhumai Ki Jai. Srimati Tulasi Devi Ki Jai. Sadveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Gaur Premananda. All glories the assembled devotees. All glories the assembled devotees. All glories the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Shri Ki Jai. Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vastaya Bhutale. Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi. Gauravani Bhajarni Nivasisha Shanivadi Paschatya Deja Tarani. So now we're going to read for the next text in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And we're getting up there in this world to passion. So, 329.9 for those who have devices, which is everybody. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Vishayan
Abhisandaya Yasha Aishvaryam Eva Archada Archayet Yo Mam Pratag Bhava Sa Rajasa Vishayan Abhisandaya Yasha Aishvaryameva Archadavarchayed Yomam Tadbhava Sarajasa Vishayan Abhisandaya Yasha Aishvaryameva Archadavarchayed Yomam Dagbhava Sarajasa Vishayan Abhisandaya Yasha Aishvaryameva Archadavarchayed Yomam Pritadbhava Sarajasa
Vishayan Abhisandhaya Yasha Aishvaryam Eva Archadav Archayed Yomam Pritag Bhava Sarajasaha विषयानभिसन्धाय यश ऐश्वर्यमेव वा अर्चादावर्चयेद्यो माम् पृथग्भावः स राजसः विषयानभिसन्धाय यश ऐश्वर्यमेव वा अर्चादावर्चयेद्यो माम् पृथग्भावः स राजसः
विषयानभिसन्धाय यश ऐश्वर्यमेव वा अर्चादावर्चयेयो माम् पृथग्भावः स राजसः
विषयान् अभिसन्धाय यश ऐश्वर्यम् एव वा अर्चयेद्यो माम् पृथग्भावः स राजसः
विषयान् अभिसन्धाय यश ऐश्वर्यमेव वा अर्चादावर्चयेद्यो माम् पृथग्भावः स राजसः
All right. Vishayan, sense objects. Abhisandaya, aiming at. Yasha, fame. Aishvaryam, opulence. Eva, indeed. Va, or. Archa Adav, in worship of the deity and so on. Archayat, may worship. Ya, he who. Mam, me. Pritag Bhava, a separatist. Sa, he. Rajasa, in the mode of passion. It's a translation. The worship of deities in the temple by a separatist with a motive for material enjoyment, fame, and opulence is devotion in the mode of passion. So, purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The word separatist must be understood carefully. The Sanskrit words in this connection are Vinodrik and Pritag Bhava. A separatist is one who sees his interest as separate from that of the Supreme Lord. Mixed devotees, or devotees in the modes of passion and ignorance, think that the interest of the Supreme Lord is supplying the orders of the devotee. The interest of such devotees is to draw from the Lord as much as possible for their sense gratification. This is the separatist mentality. Actually, pure devotion, as explained in the previous chapter, the mind of the Supreme Lord and the mind of the devotee should be dovetailed. A devotee should not wish anything but to execute the desire of the Supreme. That is oneness. When the devotee has an interest or will different from the interest of the Supreme Lord, his mentality is that of a separatist. When the so-called devotee desires material enjoyment without reference to the interest of the Supreme Lord, or he wants to become famous or opulent by utilizing the mercy or grace of the Supreme Lord, he is in the mode of passion. Mayavadis, however, interpret this word separatist in a different way. They say that while worshiping the Lord, one should think himself one with the Supreme Lord. This is another adulterated form of devotion within the modes of material nature. The conception that the living entity is one with the Supreme is in the mode of ignorance. Oneness is actually based on oneness of interest. A pure devotee has no interest but to act on behalf of the Supreme Lord. When one has even a tinge of personal interest, his devotion is mixed with the three modes of material nature. I'll repeat that. When one has even a tinge of personal interest, his devotion is mixed with the three modes of material nature. Tinge means even an insignificant amount of interest. So, again, the verse. Vishayan abhisantoya yasha aishvaryameva va archadavatshaya dyomam pitadbhava sarajasa. So, Omagana Timirandasha Gananjana Shlakaya Chakshur Urmidita Yena Tasmai Shigareta Maha. So, many times in Prabhupada's books we hear about something called the Purushartas. Anyone's heard of that before? Yes. Purushartas.
Oh, yes.
That means many times you use the word artha to refer to economic development, but in this particular case it means interests. So the interests of the human being are dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. So in other words, you want to enjoy yourself. Kama is like in the mode of ignorance, which is kama. And actually, there's a deity of kama. Cupid. Kamadev. And the problem is, the big problem is he's ananga. Anyone know what that means?
Yes. Without leg.
Without limbs. I know that's what it means, but technically that's yes. But what does it actually mean for us? Who knows?
In any shape or form.
No. Yeah, but what does it mean as far as we are concerned is my question.
Is it without an artist?
What?
Is it without an artist?
No.
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 It lives in us, maybe?
No. Ananga.
Invisible.
Nobody can guess. It means he's invisible. That's the way you take it. You know, that's Ananga basically means without limbs, but it really means he's invisible. Why was he invisible? Because he tried to agitate Lord Shiva. And Lord Shiva didn't only cut off his limbs, he burnt the whole body to ashes. And therefore he became invisible. Of course, sometimes he appears in this world as Prajuna. Anyone's heard of Prajuna before? Then he recognizes his wife, Rati, who was in the form of Mayavati. Anyway, it's the whole story in the Krishna book. And then he gets married to her again. But generally, he's invisible. So what does that mean for us? That means he's firing his arrows at you without you being aware. Oh my God. Love. Lust. But not just lust in terms of what? In terms of the, physical lust and sex and everything like that. It's lust in terms of wanting to enjoy any of the objects of the senses. The tongue, the belly, the eyes, the ears, nose, right? So he has these different arrows, the 5 arrows actually. He said, let me go to this restaurant, Cupid. Isn't that a handsome young man, Cupid? My husband is too old. That's him. And sometimes he's unsuccessful, especially when he goes to Narayana Rishi and starts to fire his arrows. And then Narayana Rishi just yawns.
Yes.
But, any of these objects of the senses. Smell. You smell something nice. Like the ladies that like perfume. Anyway, so we can't see him when he's coming, so we have to be very, very careful. So that he's the demigod of lust. Very, very interesting. Of course, Krishna is also the transcendental Cupid. Those who chant the Kama Gayatri will understand that. Kama Devaya. I'm not going to give you the whole Gayatri much, but Kama Devaya, he's the god of lust. But not material lust, but the lust of love. Because what is the lust in this world but a perverted reflection of the lust in the spiritual world, right? And the cure for the lust of this world is to hear about Krishna's pastimes from the right person. Because if you hear about Krishna's pastimes from the wrong person, you get more lusty. Instead of getting purified, Prabhupada said, you get putrefied, which is the opposite. So it's, hear from the right person, and then lust dissipates. Then you become enthusiastic, utsahan, isn't it? Utsahan, you become enthusiastic instead of enthusiastic to serve your senses. You become enthusiastic to serve Rishikena, Rishikesha, Sevana, Bhakti, Uchate. And instead of the loyum, just like we hear in the Upadeshamrita, loyum is a problem. It's an impediment in devotional service. Hankering, intense hankering. Then this loyum is the price for pure devotional service, right? The same word, loyum. That's what Rupa Goswami says. That is the price. Or as Prabhupada translated that word, as tears are the price for pure devotional service. I want you so much so you start crying. Just like yesterday, I was speaking to one young man who just took initiation, and he said, how can I avoid falling down? And I said, don't worry. And he started crying, being worried that he was going to fall down. Anyway, that's a little too much. Generally, we should be worried. But we should have the tears. I want to be Krishna conscious. I want to be Krishna conscious. So anyway, so that's Kama. And Kama was dealt with in the last verse about the mode of ignorance. Just pure sense gratification. And the second Purushartha, actually the first one is Dharma, but Kama is one of the last ones. But Kama is actually dealing with the mode of ignorance. But the first one is Dharma, Kama, Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. So that's the whole thing. But anyway, the first one is Dharma. So here it's being described like Dharma and Artha and also a little bit of Kama too. Because also in the mode of passion there's also Kama. But not uncontrolled Kama as there is in the mode of ignorance. So anyway, one is worshipping Dharma, worshipping the Lord for some ulterior purpose. And of course we find many examples of that. And also, there is religious performances that are done in a formal way that encourage people to think like that. Like you have the Satyanarayan Katha, right? Where people go and they tell stories about different devotees who worship Satyanarayan, and then ultimately they became rich, they became famous, or whatever happened like that. And then, of course, you have the story of Dhruva Maharaj that encourages people. And then you have the story of different stories in the Bhagavatam. Anyway, I can't think of the name right now. But what was it? Oh, Sudama Brahman. Sudama Brahman who comes to Krishna and he just offers Krishna a little broken rice, and then Sudama Brahma becomes very wealthy. So you have all these different stories like that. And I remember in the Fiji temple, the Suva temple, that I told the story already of that. You remember that. So Vasudeva, who was very much, anyway, he liked money. So he replaced, I had two nice pictures I had drawn of different pastimes of the Supreme Personality of God that were on the temple wall. So he replaced them with other pictures that encourage people to give more donations. like the Sudama Brahman picture and other pictures like that. So, anyway, and then also the other day, one of the devotees who should remain nameless came to me. He said, I was asked to give a lecture. I don't know the devotee, anyway, whoever it is. I was asked to speak at this conference about the Bhagavad Gita, and they advertised me as he's very successful, got a good position, and because of Krishna, not because of Krishna, because of the Bhagavad Gita. And so they're trying to attract people utilizing some material means. So this devotee, whoever it is, I don't know, came to me and he said, what should I do, Guru Maharaj? And I said, yes, you can utilize this particular point to try to draw people into Krishna consciousness. Because we have to understand that people come to Krishna consciousness for various reasons, as we often quote this verse in the Bhagavad Gita, Chaturvidha bhajanti mam. People come because they're looking for wealth. Okay. So you do that, and you also explain that wealth is not the ultimate goal. And then you can tell the story, because I didn't say this, but you can tell the story of Dhruva Maharaj. That's an interesting story to tell. That Dhruva Maharaj was looking for wealth. And you can make a joke. You say, more wealth than all you guys are looking for. He wanted to have the wealth of the universe.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. I mean, you just want to have a yacht or something. Just like yesterday, I looked at the news a little bit, and there was this one person who was the co-founder of Google or whatever, and he had this yacht that was worth 450-something million US dollars, and he pulls into Miami, and it's the biggest yacht in the world. There's 2 helipads. Very attractive, isn't it? Wouldn't you like that? And 2 helipads and 2 swimming pools. Pretty nice, isn't it? And so, it's the biggest private ship or yacht that anyone's seen. So anyway, so Dhruva Maharaj wanted more than that. And so he worshipped Narayan. Actually, he kept chanting like that. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And because of that, he got that. But after he got what he wanted, guess what? He said, I was looking for something that's basically useless, some pieces of broken glass. And now I have found a wonderful gem or diamond or whatever. And so, yes, if you worship Krishna with some ulterior motive, you can quote this verse, Akama Sarvakama Mokshakama Dharati Tivrena Bhakti Yogini Yajeta Purasham Param. Yeah, I guess you could use it as a little impetus to worship Krishna. But then you have to explain how to worship Krishna and what is the meaning of the Bhagavad Gita. Because if you simply read the Bhagavad Gita and memorize a whole bunch of verses, like they make these kids do in these competitions so the parents can be proud of them. You hear about these competitions. I mean, of course, we entered one in, not me, but our temple entered one in North Carolina, and we had the #1 memorizer of the Bhagavad Gita.
Wow.
And it looked pretty good, isn't it?
Yeah.
Doesn't mean he understood anything.
Yeah.
This is like, who inevitably, at least in America, who inevitably wins the spelling contest? Indians. It's true. It's American. It's English. And who wins this spelling contest? Same thing in Europe.
Same thing here.
Same thing here, yeah. Because the parents are just like, rote memorization. I mean, that's actually the Indian system of education anyway, isn't it? Just have to memorize a bunch of useless things that you'll never use in life later on. So, you can make the point that, yes, Bhagavad Gita is very nice, but you have to follow what's in the Bhagavad Gita. So what is the message of the Bhagavad Gita? The message, of course, is, there's many messages, Manmana Bhagavan Bhakto Madhyashi Mam Namaskuru. Mami Vaishasi Sacham Te Pratijane Priyosime Sarvadharman Purichana. That's kind of scary. Yeah, don't bring that one out. Just say, always think of me, become my devotee, and worship me, etc. That you will come to me. And then you can also say that, wherever there's Krishna's Arjuna, there's victories, morality, and everything. You quote that particular verse too, which actually encourages me, victory!
Yes.
So, in this way, we can actually point out the ultimate goal of the Bhagavad Gita. I think that's really important in presenting the Bhagavad Gita. So the ultimate goal of the Bhagavad Gita is pure devotional service, and then we know Savaipum Samparo Dharma Yato Bhakti Hoksajay Oitagiya Pratite Yatma Suprasidate. That the only thing that's going to satisfy you, Yatma Suprasidate, is actually loving Krishna, pure devotional service, without any motive, without stopping in any circumstance. So you can make that point. You want to be happy, who are the happiest people? And then you can also talk about different studies of different countries where people are, happiness quotient or something like that. Like, what is the happiest country in the world? Scandinavian country.
Something like that.
Something like that. And are the richest people the happiest people? Anyway, so if you want to be happy, Yatma Suprasidate, Sensavipum Sam Paradharma Yadapakti Hoksate, because your ultimate condition, your ultimate nature, a constitutional position, is Ajivera Swarupoy Nitya Krishna Das. So, we'll keep it short today. So this is the mode of passion that's being discussed today. And then tomorrow we get to the mode of goodness. And that's moksha. We're just talking about the Purusharthas, Dharma, Artha, Kama, moksha. Because in the mode of goodness, your motivation is moksha. Being liberated from this world. So any questions or comments? Yes.
Krishna Gurudev. It's mentioned here about oneness. So
Oneness, yeah. That's in
Oneness.
reference to the Mayavadis. The purport, yeah.
Yes. In general nectar of devotion, we hear Sandhananda Vishesh Atma.
Yeah.
Is oneness, right? That means knowing deity's intention and being executing what deity is like, what Krishna likes is what we do, is oneness. And we see in Guru Puja as well, right? Oneness. So can like a sadhaka bhakta like us, can we go at this stage of oneness, or we have to be the
We can act in the stage of oneness, although our minds are not in the stage of oneness. And how do we do that? We tadvidi, manivatena, maniprashna, sevaya. We inquire submissively. What does Krishna want? And then, even if Krishna wants something that's different from what we want, we act in that way. As we mentioned the other day, that is action using your intelligence, which is the form, direction of supersoul. And how do you understand that? You inquire. You inquire from the advanced devotees, you inquire from the spiritual master. What does Krishna want? And then, based on that, you act. And then even if your mind is rebelling, even if you would like to do something else, but you don't, then action and knowledge, remember, talk about this, gives you realization. Because if you wait for the realization to hit, it's not going to hit. I remember one devotee who would go on Sankirtan, and he would arrive at the Sankirtan spot, and he said, I just don't feel inspired today. And he would go to sleep in the park, right across the street from the Sankirtan spot. And around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, he'd get his inspiration. And then you start distributing like crazy. So, and other devotees, even though they weren't inspired in the morning, They just got out of the van or got out of the vehicle and started distributing. And then they became inspired. You know, it's like that. I mean, who in the morning, at least if you're a conditioned soul, when you wake up, it's just like, Haribo! You know, especially in the temple, you know, I remember that, you know, I used to, in the beginning days, there were like 30 brahmacharis sleeping in the same room. And, you know, I could observe everybody. They'd get up in the morning, and it was groggy. Not that they took groggy. It wasn't Fiji, but they were just like, you know, wiping their eye. Like that. Thank God it wasn't the woman's ashram. They have to put makeup on it. You know, to look half decent in the morning. But anyway, so, but the men, you know, anyway, but they were groggy, you know, they're just like, and sometimes angry. You know, you get angry, you know, when you're just after the mode of ignorance, then you go to mixed passion and ignorance and just and get out of that shower right away. You know, so I very rarely saw someone jumping up in ecstasy. It's time for Mangalarti. And sometimes, because I was like the earliest one up, which I still am, sometimes I would have to wake people up, and I would either play cartels by their ear, or one time I actually dragged the sleeping bag into the shower. That was the last time I did that one. I got angry. So in other words, sometimes you just have the intelligence. You know, it's Mangalarti. You wake up, you don't, what is Mangalarti? You don't remember what Mangalarti is. And then you just, but after a while you start dancing and chanting. It becomes ecstatic. So that's action in knowledge gives you realization. So but even though we're not in the mode of goodness, we can act in the mode of transcendental goodness, not just goodness. And actually, even if we are not thinking of pleasing Krishna, if we're thinking of pleasing Guru, we're acting on the transcendental platform, and our mind is even in the mode of transcendental goodness, Vishuddha. So that brings it down. Having a spiritual master brings everything down to our, I wouldn't say our level, but level of understanding and ability. You know, my thinking of pleasing Prabhupada, it's easy. But if I think pleasing Krishna, I mean, it's really high up there, isn't it? But he has everything. He has all these gopis and all these cooks for him, and, you know, and, you know, he has blue skin. I've never seen anyone with blue skin before. You know, he plays the flute, which is nice. And he steals butter, and, you know, he's real cute and real wonderful. You know, I like him. But to think of, you know, actually to think of pleasing Krishna, it's really hard, you know, just to be honest. I mean, of course, if you're thinking of pleasing Krishna for some ulterior purpose, that's easy. But if you're thinking of pleasing Krishna just to please Krishna, wow. That's really hard, isn't it? I mean, sometimes one's doing deity worship, and the deity, you see the deity smile at you. I mean, that's kind of makes it a little easier doing deity worship. But generally, you know, just thinking, I just want to please Krishna. What does that mean? It's really an elevated stage of consciousness. But thinking of someone who you've met, someone who you know, that makes it much easier. And then Krishna becomes even more pleased.
Yes. See, from like what Buddha, I always remember you every morning, like, you know, how you said, how you said that, you know, what motivates you is like the love for Prabhupada and love for the deity that keeps you going to Mangalarti that you never miss. So I always remember that for many years. And from my little tiny experience, it's just the love for the deities that keeps me going, even
That's
you know,
nice.
not enough sleep or what, you know. It's just services is there. It's just deities comes in the face, and I'm like, okay, another day to serve deities.
And once you start doing it, you feel good.
Varieties, yeah.
Then you feel ecstatic.
Yeah, yeah. It's never like, you know, that I'm bored or I don't want to go, I'm too tired. It just
Oh, you never
keeps
get
me
tired?
going. But not like when I'm serving devotees, deities or something.
She's really transcendental.
Yeah.
I mean, the rest of us get tired.
I don't know how she
I
does it.
get
I mean,
tired about work. Any other things, you
Anyway,
know,
pray for me and talk to Krishna and pray for
No,
me.
it's all because of you, Gurudev. You know, if you were not there in life, it would have been very difficult.
Jai.
Yeah, so anyway, so we think of Krishna as devotees.
Yes.
And, you know, not only do I think of Prabhupada, but I think of the other devotees.
Yeah.
You know, if I don't come to Mangalarti, what sort of example I'm going to set, I'm going to be hurting their devotional life, so I have to set the good example.
That's correct.
So Gurudev, sorry, just the example you gave about the devotee who's waiting to get inspired and gets inspired at 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
Or the devotee who's, you know, so which one is better? Is it the person who's starting?
The person who's starting on the intelligence platform and with faith, because if you're waiting to get inspired, that shows a lack of faith.
Right.
You're thinking, well, maybe this isn't real. Let's wait till I actually feel. But the other person says, I understand. This is real. This is the goal of life. Krishna is the person who I have to please. I have to overcome my anarthas. The other person is thinking, has actually much doubt, a lot of doubt. And because of doubt, Shradanana Purusha Dharma Shasha Parantapa Prapyamam Nivartante Mrityu Samsara Vardhani. You know that verse?
Yeah. Sorry.
That one, a Shradana Purusha, that person who doesn't have that faith in Krishna conscious Dharma Shasha Parantapa, Almighty Armed Arjuna, Aprapyamam Nivartante. He cannot achieve me. But Mrityu Samsara Vardhani, he continues with the path, the Vardhani, the path of repeated Mrityu Samsara, the path of repeated birth and death. So, that's the point. So it's all a question of faith.
Yeah.
You know, that's the point. You know, faith is everything. One has faith, even if one doesn't feel like it, one will act properly. If one doesn't have faith, you're waiting until you feel like it. That's the difference between inspiration and, you know, just sleep, laziness. Isn't it? Yasha Devi Parabhakti. You know the verse? Yasha Devi Parabhakti, Ita Devi Para. Tashaite Katita Yarta Prakashante Mahatmana. One who has faith, Yasha Devi Parabhakti, Ita Devi Tata Guru. One who has faith in the Vedic literatures, one who has faith in the spiritual master, then everything is revealed to such a person. So it's all based upon faith. Because then you act properly. Isn't it? Shraddha Shabde Vishasakahe Sudrida Nishya. And faith means that we understand if we act in such a way, according to Krishna's direction, then that everything is accomplished. Simple like that. Okay. All right. Any other questions? Quick questions. Yeah. Yeah. Oh.
Sorry, Gurudev, just that tinge of personal interest.
Yeah, tinge of personal interest. You understand what that means?
Yeah, but I was thinking, you get into the modes of nature. How can we
Get rid of all the
assess-
tinges we have.
assess? It's like impossible. I was thinking
Simply think of pleasing Guru and Krishna.
that will overcome that.
Think and work on that level, even though you may not have that consciousness at present. Understand, have the faith. Again, we get back to faith.
Yeah.
Have that faith that is actually real. You know, everything is based on faith. You know, there's that statement, If you have faith, you can move mountains or something like that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like Prabhupada, like you see Prabhupada, the external circumstances, if one would look at Prabhupada's life from external circumstances, he would have never been, you'd come to the conclusion, how can this person be successful?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But he had that implicit and explicit faith in the words of his spiritual master. I mean, that was the point. And because of that faith, he did something that basically was impossible at that age. I mean, physically it's almost impossible. Because we had faith in Prabhupada, we were able to produce the 17 books in 2 months. Because within the word or order of the spiritual master is the success potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You understand? So Prabhupada had that faith. The spiritual master said, you preach in the Western world, you'll be successful. You preach in English, you'll be successful. All right, let me go there. I have no money. I have to go on a steamship. And he went there and he had that faith. Because of that, everything blossoms. Isn't it? So that's the point. The faith will actually bring us to that point. Faith is trust. Faith is not belief. I often use the example of the difference between faith and belief. You can believe that Krishna exists, but you may not necessarily have faith in him. For example, the example I always give is that the criminal believes the police exist. But they don't have faith in following the law will give them a good result, right? But they have full faith the police exist. Complete trust or belief, rather than faith. Let's try to distinguish. They have full belief that the police exist. Otherwise, they wouldn't be effective criminals. So, faith is everything. Yasha Devi Paravatir, Yata Devi Ta Guru, Tashaite Tatita Yarta Prakashante Mahatmana. Right? Faith in Guru, faith in the Vedic literatures. And then everything is revealed. Then you get realization, then you get pure devotional service. Everything. Okay. Thank you. Time to get to work.
Yes.
Time to report to your board. All glorious to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.